well, the year 2020 can just go off and fucking die, because I honestly don't think that there has been a worse year for pro wrestling than 2020. I mean, the sport of kings has never been hit so hard with so many controversies and problems that it's almost hard to fathom. It started off small, but holy shit has it gotten out of control. First of all, we had some tough retirements on the sport of wrestling, which made the fans mourn. Wrestlers retired like Manabu Nakanishi, referee Tiger Hattori, and Jushin Thunder Liger was the retirement that struck our hearts the most, along with the alleged, and yes I mean alleged, retirement of The Undertaker. But more or less, we were sad to see these legends go, because these guys were all, especially Taker and Jushin Thunder Liger, that were revered in the sport. And even those people that just got into New Japan Pro Wrestling, they knew the legacy that referee Tiger Hattori had, and it was sad to see him go. We hit more roadblocks when Goldberg beat The Fiend. Gotta put over Goldberg. Goldberg's gotta be a superhero to the kids instead of putting over this brand new talent. Is a brand new breath of fresh air. Nah, he's not gonna get over. Let's just have Goldberg win. We also have the burial of Ricochet, a talent who could have been a huge superstar, only to lose in Brock Lesnar in less than 5 minutes, having no offense whatsoever in that match. And yes, I'm looking at you, Super Showdown, you sweet Saudi money. And having his career greatly suffer after that loss. Ricochet has never been the same. Ricochet is now on Main Event. He is on Main Event, for Christ's sake. WWE allegedly gives up on Shayna Baszler, even though Shayna Baszler has money printed all over her. Nia Jax being a complete idiot and constantly harming talent, including Kairi Sane, where she cut open her head, for Christ's sakes. These were just some of the few in-ring controversies that WWE had been facing throughout the majority of the year. It's still somewhat small compared to the bigger stuff, but holy shit, is it still something that should not be overlooked. WWE and the wrestling industry in general took a massive hit when COVID-19 became a global pandemic and essentially eliminated all wrestling live attendance and live event sales. WWE and AEW have managed to stay afloat, but the independent wrestling scene has taken a massive hit. Look, these are independent wrestlers and they don't have guaranteed salaries like WWE wrestlers or people on the AEW roster, so they need to work constantly along with selling their merch to at least make a living. And without crowds, it's impacted the indies severely, along with the fact that there have been tons and tons of pro wrestling schools that had to close down, including one here in Los Angeles. The premier wrestling school, Santino Bros, had to close down, and it has even stopped me from starting my pro wrestling training. So it's been affecting everyone in the business crazily. At first, wrestling without an audience sucked because crowd interaction is such a fundamental part of the wrestling business, and now they managed to turn it around by having good matches, and WWE along with AEW at least have some people in the crowd, even if they are just wrestlers that are cheering the faces and booing the heels. But it's better than having no one in the crowd, because at first these empty arena shows were abysmal, to say the least. Along with the empty arena shows that were going on, wrestling suffered its fair share of deaths in the community. Wrestlers like Danny Havoc had passed away, along with the Soul Man, Rocky Johnson. You guys might know him as The Rock's father, a pioneer for black wrestlers. And I remember I was at AEW's Bash at the Beach when I had heard because they announced it that he had passed away, and my stomach was like, oh, it just wrenched, and I was so sad, and I was like, God damn, this, like my first thought was like, I feel sorry, I'm sad for The Rock, he lost his dad, like, and it's just awful. It was just awful, that feeling. And it didn't stop there. The greatest announcer of all time, Howard Finkel, the Fink, also passed away. Solid Monster from Solid Monster Sounds Off said, you can tell when someone is revered when everyone has an impression of him, and everyone does have an impression of Howard Finkel. Shad Gaspard, he died after being swept away in a high current tide, and his final action in life was to tell the lifeguards to save his son. And the probably most tragic of them all was Hana Kimura being cyberbullied and taking her own life due to it. And this one was probably the saddest one because Hana was only 22. WWE also painted themselves in a very bad light this year when, in the midst of the coronavirus epidemic, an epidemic that we have not seen or witnessed in a massive scale like this in our lifetimes, when WWE decided they were going to do their spring cleaning and release a bunch of talent like Kurt Angle, Heath Slater, the longest tenured ref in WWE history, Mike Chioda, Drake Maverick, and yes, they did hire him back, but Drake was lucky because of the massive fan support that he had that made him ultimately come back. But others were not so lucky, like Tino Sabbatelli and Cassius Ohno. They weren't so lucky. They didn't get to come back. I had a feeling that, they were going to do their spring cleaning anyway. They usually do it, like every single year. But they choose the worst time to actually do this. I mean, it's bad enough to lose your job in and of itself, but it's even worse to lose your job in the midst of a pandemic, when times are uncertain and you need your job for financial security. So this painted WWE in a very bad light, to say the least. Finally, we get to the current wave of sexual assault allegations that has painted a very dark picture of pro wrestling, with so many wrestlers speaking out and telling their stories against some very noticeable names like Jordan Devlin, David Starr, who started all of this and all of the terms of people speaking out. NXT UK star El Ligero recently, Brock Lesnar, and Matt Riddle. There are tons and tons of stories of these allegations. They're all online if you want to check them out. But there is one story in particular that's horrific, where Matt Riddle allegedly was driving a van with Candy Cartwright and several other wrestlers. When the wrestlers fell asleep in the back, Riddle pressured Candy for sex, and when she said no, Matt grabbed her by the throat and said, "What if I just made you?" Truly disgusting. There are tons of stories that include men and women, along with some people who are underage when the abuse even started. Joey Ryan is one instance that I want to talk about specifically because, of course, he was also accused of sexual assault. But due to these allegations, he has been forced to close down his promotion, Bar Wrestling, which had become somewhat of a staple in the California independent scene. And I actually went to a couple of bar wrestling shows, and they were honestly really, really fun. The one thing that really sucks about bar wrestling closing is the fact that there were a lot of people who worked to make bar wrestling great. It wasn't just Joey Ryan doing all the work. There were a lot of people that were working, and no single promotion can be run by just one person. They need help. And now those people are out of a job, including the wrestlers who have now lost an essential place to work and also to learn here in LA. So is 2020 the worst year for professional wrestling? I would definitely say it's the worst year in the modern wrestling landscape, because holy shit, I don't remember so many bad things happening at once for the sport of kings, so I definitely have to say that it is. But I will say this: where there has been bad, there definitely has been some good as well. Like Drew McIntyre winning the Royal Rumble and going on to capture the WWE Championship at WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar after being fired from the company and working his way up to prove that he is indeed the chosen one. Tetsuya Naito coming back from his slump and winning both IWGP Heavyweight and IC titles. Generally, everything that AEW has done these past few months, the return of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Mandy and Otis at WrestleMania, and Drake Maverick staying in WWE were just some of the feel-good storylines that made us feel exactly that. It isn't so bad, guys. We can get through this. And sure, it's rough and it's ugly right now. But if we can make it through Jinder Mahal's WWE title reign, then we can make it through 2020. Just stay strong.